be told. Let's go ahead and talk as a group about some of your questions. We've got about 15 minutes left in the class, and I want to be sure that we get a chance to try to answer some of these. So, who's got a question? Who's got it? Yeah.
All right. What does Samuel Johnson mean when he said that teachers, they discourse like angels, but they live?
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, let's start with what was Sam Johnson meant. You know who Sam Johnson was? Actually, it doesn't matter. Guy who lived a long time ago. Dead white guy. Dead white guy says this. What does it mean? Discourse like angels.
The first one on page on the preface?
Yeah.
Could it possibly mean when they say like things and they don't really act the same way they're?
That's exactly what he's saying, right? Discourse like angels, that means talk fancy. Talk like we're all very ethical and live like men, just as bad as everyone else. What's interesting to me is why Lishkin chose to put this in the front of his ethics textbook. Since after all, he is announcing, he is a guy who is right. He is a teacher of morality, right? I guess so am I here. And he's opening by saying, "Don't trust me." It's an odd thing to do, don't you think? But why? It's true. Yeah.
Maybe things don't rely on his opinion.
Mm-hmm. Certainly, that's something that everyone who teaches philosophy wants to do right off the bat. We're not answer people; we're question people, right? And you know that you can, at best, we are giving you tools to answer questions. That we're not going to have definitive answers ourselves. It's interesting too. The other thing that I find interesting about this quote is he goes ahead and says on the next page that he wants this book to be viewed not only as a tool for ethical reflection, but also a means for personal improvement. And the other quotes at the front of the preface go that way too. They say, "Why study ethics if not to become more ethical?" So it looks like he's setting a high goal for himself here. He wants this to actually improve people. I want this course to improve people too, but he's recognizing that that's going to be difficult, and certainly. It won't come because the textbook author is an authority. Rather, it will come because you are being provided with tools that you'll have to use yourself. Thank you. That's a good question. Did someone else have a question? Yeah.
What makes right things and wrong things okay and not okay?
Where does morality come from? What makes them right and what makes them wrong? Well, that one's going to be a hard one to answer in the class. And really, the book itself is the answer to that question. Is an answer to that question.
What because of everybody has different mindsets. Like what one answer is right and what another answer is wrong.
Mm-hmm. Well, the book, I think. Today in class, all we can do is give the beginning of the answer, which will be the beginning of the book's answer, really. And that is that morality has its roots in the moral emotions. Not everyone agrees on that, but that's a big assumption in the theory as it's set up, right? So he's got this diagram that shows emotions feeding into other aspects of. Let's see, up here. This is my redrawing of the diagram in the present-day introduction. Right? Moral competence is an interrelated, is a cycle of interrelated things. They all feed into each other. However, the textbook starts here with moral emotion, and there's a reason for that. In some ways, in our developmental process, this is really the thing that kicks it off. And so we can begin by saying that we have instinctive moral we have instinctive responses to situations. We evaluate them as morally good or morally bad. As Mencius said, every human has a heart that cannot stand to see the suffering of others. That heart is what feeds into the rest of this process, right? And the heart begins as a sorting thing. It sorts out, baby falling in well, bad. Baby laughing, good. And we elaborate from there. This is another point that came up in the first class, and I want to emphasize it in this class too, because it's worth emphasizing. When you started on this, when you think of ethics, you immediately start thinking of ethical disagreement. And so you're thinking, that you mentioned it, people have so many different opinions. Some people think abortion is right, at least right sometimes. Some people think abortion is wrong. People favor the death penalty, they're against the death penalty, blah, blah, blah. And I think too much of a focus on disagreement hides the amount of agreement there really is on ethical issues. My colleague, Adrienne McAvoy, who teaches at another school, has an example that she uses that I like a great deal. Skinning a baby alive for your sexual gratification is wrong. Can we agree on that? Skinning a baby alive for your sexual gratification is wrong. Wait, there's a shrug there.
No, I'm just kidding.
That wouldn't bother me at all. Come on, it bothers me, right? It's interesting, I see her every couple of years at a conference, and each time I've seen her example has gotten more and more graphic. She's got a good imagination. But the point is that there are things we do. A lot of these are related, in fact, to the things that we need to do to survive as a society, as a species. This is something that Lischka emphasizes at the end of the introduction. Certain aspects of ethics have evolved simply because we need them. In our post-Darwinian era, one way to ask the question of human nature is to say, what kind of ape are we? That is, there's a question about human nature, what kind of people, but now we know. We're apes. But what kind of ape are we? Opening answer, we are not orangutans. It's obvious to you, you're not covered with orange hair. But, importantly, orangutans are apes that live alone. We aren't apes that live alone. As Aristotle said, humans are a political animal, by which he meant an animal that lives in a polis, which was the Greek word for city. In cities, we live in groups. If we're going to live in groups, we have to and a law.